From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, this is Iowa Ag Matters. In today's show, Mark visits with National Pork Producers Council Director of Animal Health, Dr. Anna Forseth. I have an agronomy update with Landus Cooperative Technical Agronomist Dan Bjorkland, and Special Correspondent Russ Parker visits with Iowa Pork Producers Association President Dean Frazer. I'm Riley Smith, one of your hosts for today, and joining me now is Dustin Huffman. And Dustin, I think we are lucky at this point not to just be floating down the river from all the rain we've gotten recently.
Yeah, I know. I heard you guys had some heavy rain. I know we talked with our intern, Terry. He was telling us how much rain there was in Ames. And we actually got some decent rain here during the day yesterday in Minnesota, where I'm at here for one more day. And we actually you could feel the cold front come through about mid-afternoon. It dropped about 20 degrees, 25 degrees. Got really windy, but the rain wasn't huge, but we really didn't need a lot up here either. Kind of like the situation. We've gotten some, now we can let it go and soak in and do its thing. So yeah, definitely our lucky things have been floating away. I know you talked to me, and I haven't been in Ankeny for a few days, but you said the trees were down in a few spots as well.
Yeah, trees were down in a few spots, and we've seen some reports of crop damage as well. Mitchellville had some flattened corn that I saw some pictures of, but otherwise the crop conditions look pretty good. When you've been on your trip up to Minnesota, what have the crop conditions looked like up there?
Really good, actually, as we were talking. I mean, I've seen, corn that was, above ankle high last week, and now we're seeing corn fields that the rows are closing up in some spots already. So the corn is going through with this heat and humidity. It loves this kind of weather. Soybeans are probably happy it's cooling off just a little bit here until they can get themselves really established and catch up. But all in all, things have been looking good. I am interested to see now with these storms that have gone through in Iowa as we go back here today, what I'm going to run into on the way home. But let's go ahead and get things started talking about grains. Riley, you got some analysis for us.
This is the opening market report for Friday on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Riley Smith. Corn prices are down 0.5 to 1.5 cents so far this morning. Futures closed Thursday with losses of 7 to 10.5 cents across most contracts as increased supplies on USDA's balance sheets added pressure. Open interest was up 5,819 contracts. The Commodity View national average cash corn price was down 6 3/4 cents at $3.80.5. Export sales data from Thursday indicated 1 million metric tons of old crop corn business in the week of June 4th. That was a 13.3% increase from last week and 26.4% larger than the same week last year. Japan was the top buyer of 373,100 metric tons, with 356,200 metric tons sold to Mexico. New crop sales were seen at 926,645 metric tons, taking new crop business to 4.124 million metric tons, a 31.6% increase from the same point last year. Japan was the lead buyer of 241,000 metric tons, with 237,500 metric tons sold to Colombia and 204,000 metric tons to South Korea. USDA's monthly WASDE report showed the old crop U.S. ending stocks number at 2.145 billion bushels, a 3 million bushel increase from last month. Corn used for ethanol was dropped by 25 million bushels, with exports offsetting that with a 25 million bushel increase. Imports were raised by 3 million bushels. That 3 million bushel carried through to the next marketing year, which was up just 3 million bushels as well to 1.96 billion bushels. Brazil production was raised by 3 million metric tons from the USDA at 138 million metric tons, with Argentina up 2 million metric tons to 61 million metric tons. CONAB data from Thursday showed the 2025-26 crop pegged at 140.46 million metric tons, up 0.29 million metric tons from last month. The first crop was raised by 0.88 million metric tons to 28.46 million metric tons, with the second crop down 0.58 million metric tons to 107.87 million metric tons. WASDE data showed 25-26 world ending stocks were up 6.41 million metric tons to 303.36 million metric tons on the increased world supplies. New crop carryout was up 3.68 million metric tons to 281.22 million metric tons. Soybeans are trading with 1 to 2 cent lower action earlier today. Futures closed Thursday with fractional to 8 cent losses. Open interest was up just 2,894 contracts. The Commodity View national average cash bean price was down 7 3/4 cents at $10.61.5. Soy meal futures were mixed, down $1 to $1.80 higher on the day, with soy oil futures 65 to 88 points lower. USDA export sales data tallied 25-26 bean sales at 211,292 metric tons for the week of June 4th. That was down 23.68% from last week, but well above the same week last year. Egypt was the buyer of 67,600 metric tons, with Japan in for 56,400. New crop sales were 141,500 metric tons, back down from the week prior by 41.77%. Unknown was the largest buyer of 120,000 metric tons. Total new crop sales have accumulated to 1.032 million metric tons, down 7.69% from last year at this time. Soy meal sales were tallied at 426,138 metric tons, which was in the middle of the expected range of 150,000 and 600,000 metric tons. Bean oil sales were 824 metric tons, falling in the estimated range to total from net reductions of 2,000 metric tons to net sales of 15,000 metric tons. WASDE data showed old crop U.S. stocks steady at 340 million bushels, though there was an internal shift of 20 million bushels from the exports to crush. New crop stocks were steady at 310 million bushels. On the world side, Brazilian production was left steady at 180 million metric tons, and Argentina up 2 million metric tons to 50 million metric tons. CONEB data showed a 0.12 million metric ton increase to 25-26 Brazilian soybean production to 180.25 million metric tons. The Rosario Grains Exchange estimates the Argentina corn crop at 51.5 million metric tons, up 1.5 million metric tons from their previous number. World carryout for 25-26 was up 0.39 million metric tons to 125.52 million metric tons on the increased Argentina supplies. New crop stocks were up 0.1 million metric tons to 124.88 million metric tons.
Rod Stewart.
When I see you tonight,
A special evening with the icon.
on a downtown train,
A night of hit after hit after hit. With special guest Richard Marks. Friday, August 14th, Iowa State Fair Grandstand. Reserve tickets on sale now through iowastatefair.org. Don't miss an electrifying event. Friday, August 14th. Rod Stewart, live.
Well, back on Iowa Ag Matters, of course, last week was World Pork Expo, and boy, did we get all kinds of information, especially pertaining to animal health. And, there's a lot of things that we're talking about right now that are hot button topics, but of course, there's always those day-to-day risks. And Dr. Anna Forseth is the Director of Animal Health for the National Pork Producers, and she talks now with Mark Magnuson.
Dr. Forseth, thanks so much for joining me here today. Let's start off with where we are just in terms of disease in general right now in the hog industry. Yeah. In simple terms, is it a good spot that we're in? Is it a decent spot that we're in? I mean, what are we looking at right now?
I think we're in a tough spot when it comes to disease, especially when we're talking about domestic or endemic diseases. Last year, there was an effort to understand or hear more from producers and the issues they were dealing with at the slat level. And we heard a lot about challenges associated specifically with PRRS and PED, but we also heard from producers that they continue to have concerns about the threat or the risks that are foreign swine diseases or other emerging diseases like high path avian influenza, New World screwworm, as a couple of examples. So I think overall, it's hard to say that we're in a good spot when it comes to health, but that is helping to drive a lot of activities at the national and state levels to do something about it.
Let's start with one of those that you mentioned there, screwworm. Of course, we have been very hyper-focused on screwworm in terms of the cattle industry because we've seen the effects there in Mexico with what's happened, and then the closing of the border didn't allow the feeder cattle to move over the border to the U.S. But it also is something that can affect all mammals. Right. I mean, do I have that right? It is able to be a problem for pigs. Yep. In a general sense. So could you kind of tell us about screwworm and what we need to be thinking about there?
Sure. Yeah. So any warm-blooded mammal. So includes pigs, of course, cattle. And geographically, when we think of where it's at and where it's moving, it makes sense that we're talking more about cattle. There's a huge cattle industry in Texas, and the way that they're raised compared to a lot of swine here in Iowa in a commercial facility. Not that flies can't get into a commercial hog barn, but I think the risks are a little bit different for a couple of reasons, and that's why cattle have maybe been at the top of the list as far as species of concern or risk. So USDA did report earlier this week that there was a case confirmed 25 miles from the border in a 5-year-old goat. And so I think that that's just another example or data point of the northward movement and continued risk or ever-present risk, especially now. This fly loves this time of year, and so despite a lot of really strong efforts by USDA, we are continuing to see those cases move closer and closer to the U.S. border. And so I think to start, just general awareness that we might see the screwworm detected in the U.S. We might see it detected in the U.S. I'm not going to project any sort of timeline, but it might happen just given given the seasonality and again that particular pest. But it's a risk to pigs. It's something that we have been following. We've been engaged with USDA and state veterinarians on what a potential response might look like, and how that response might look different for cattle when compared to swine.
And to your point as well, I mean, the flies, they're not going to respect a border. They're not going to respect a river. So it's just something that we have to keep in mind as could be an eventuality. It's just, there's no way to really determine it, obviously.
Yeah. No, it's hard to predict. But again, just it's kind of a perfect storm situation almost, right? Like it's moving northward, but again, the temperatures right now, the season, we might see more movement now than we were seeing a few months ago.
Your local radio station brings you the pulse of your community. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network adds specialized ag content to help farmers make informed decisions. From county fairs to national ag news, we're here to tell the story of agriculture to everyone who needs to hear it. Together, we deliver a blend of local community and ag industry-focused information that rural Iowa relies on every day. This message from your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.
Time to run down basis numbers here on Iowa Ag Matters on this Friday. I'm Dustin Huffman. Taking a look at cash bids around the state. Let's start at ADM Burlington. They're 13 cents under on corn, $3.97. Soybeans 28 cents under. They're at $10.86. Cargill and Eddyville, a dime under on corn. The cash bid there, $4 even. New Co-op Algona, 30 cents under on corn, $3.80. Soybeans 33 cents under with a cash price of $10.81. Ag State Sheldon, 16 cents under on corn, $3.94. Soybeans 40 cents under, $10.74. Ag State Elta, 31 cents under on corn, $3.79. Soybeans 35 cents under. They're at $10.79 for the cash price. Cargill Cedar Rapids, 2 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.08. Soybeans a dime under at $11.04. Five-Star Co-op Nashua, 26 cents under on corn, $3.84. Soybeans 35 cents under, $10.79. Lincoln Way Energy Nevada, 15 cents under on corn. They're at $3.95 for the cash bid. ADM Des Moines, a dime under on soybeans. Their cash price, $11.04. New Co-op Red Oak, 20 cents under on corn, $3.90. Soybeans, 33 cents under, $10.81. Mid-Iowa Cooperative Green Mountain, 40 cents under on corn, $3.70 for the cash bid. Soybeans, 70 cents under, $10.44. New Co-op Sheraton, 22 cents under on corn, $3.88. Soybeans, 33 cents under, cash bid, $10.81. At Walk-On Feed Rancher, 46 cents under on corn, $3.64. Soybeans 59 cents under at $10.55. New Co-op in Glidden, 28 cents under on corn. They're at $3.82 for the cash bid. Soybeans 33 cents under at $10.81. Innovative Ag Farley, 40 cents under on corn, $3.70. Soybeans 55 cents under. The cash price $10.59. Cargill Muscatine, 20 cents under on corn, $3.90. Soybeans 25 cents under. They're at $10.89. Well, we had about half of the elevators making switches here today on those bids. Cash corn and soybean bids are subject to change without notice, so always check with your local elevator when making sales to obtain the most recent price. That's been a rundown of your cash bids here on Iowa Ag Matters. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
Rod Stewart.
Will I see you tonight?
A special evening with the icon.
On a downtown train.
A Night of Hit. After Hit. After Hit. With special guest Richard Marks. Friday, August 14th, Iowa State Fair Grandstand. Reserve tickets on sale now through iowastatefair.org. Don't miss an electrifying event. Friday, August 14th. Rod Stewart, live.
Well, coming up here now on Iowa Ag Matters, as we were talking earlier in the show about crop conditions in different parts of the country, especially as pertains to different areas of Iowa. We're going to have a featured conversation now with the agronomists at Landus. It's going to be a feature that we're going to have throughout the summer, and Riley kicks it off with Dan Bjorkland.
Riley Smith, Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, here for a bi-weekly agronomy update with Dan Bjorkland. He is a technical agronomist with Landus Cooperative, and Dan covering the entire state of Iowa. As we look at the crop conditions across the state, how are we looking right now?
If you look at corn, I was just south of Des Moines in the Earlham area yesterday, and there's corn stage of growth there from V7 to V8, which, knee high. And I think even further south, for those individuals that were able to plant a little bit earlier in April, you could have it thigh high. So from that stage of growth all the way up to last week I was in northern Iowa along the Minnesota border, and corn that was planted the first week of May, so planted quite a bit later, was maybe V4, V5. So there's a difference. Soybeans are really interesting because at this time of the year, soybeans are always just small. You've got a couple trifoliates, maybe 3 trifoliates in the Des Moines lobe, which runs through, the soil types through the center of the state. They have some higher pHs. You're starting to see some yellowing in those beans. Otherwise, things look fairly decent driving 55 mile an hour on the highway. If you get out into the fields, you see some scars from what happened in the planting season this year.
So when we think about how the weather has been, really Iowa has been pretty fortunate when it comes to rainfall for the most part. There are some dry parts of the state, but in general with the weather this year, has that been cooperative for the crop or how has that been?
It's been really interesting because March we had some 80s, and then April, right when we were getting ready to plant, we had rainfall and very cool temperatures throughout April. Some individuals were able to get in that window of, April 14th a little bit, but then were rained out, and it really didn't open back up for planting until about the 19th or 20th of April. Some individuals, depending upon soil types, if they're a little bit heavier, maybe went a day or two too early, and we had some compaction. We had some seed furrows open back up, and you could see that occurring when we started getting some warmer temperatures in May. Those individuals that waited for the first week of May, really that corn, with the temperatures as they really accelerated into May after Mother's Day, the corn really caught up pretty fast. So this year was the year of planting in a seed bed that was ready to go, and some individuals did and some individuals didn't. And so you could see the impact of that. Overall, things look pretty decent now. We've had some rains recently that have helped the next 3 days. As long as we don't get the hail with it, we're supposed to get some decent rain. So I think we're heading into the season, heading into the middle part of June, pretty excellent condition. Now, there are a couple things that I could mention that could be problematic. Something that I've seen in soybeans earlier than I've ever seen before.
And then when we look at pest pressure as well, I actually heard some reports recently of some farmers dealing with army worms already. But in general, for this time of year, do we expect to see many pests? And if so, have you heard about any damage across the state?
Well, yeah, in soybeans, I was looking at a field. We have a program called Sky Scout, and basically we use drones and planes and satellites. People subscribe to the system, and we get imagery on these fields every 2 to 3 days. And various different types of things that it's looking for. Weed pressure is one that I've seen heavy this year in both corn and beans, and I think it. You're talking about pests, and weeds are a different type of pest, but I've seen more challenges there, and I think it was because, for those individuals who planted, and then we had 2 or 3 weeks in May where it didn't rain, and so we didn't get the pre-emergence herbicide working as well. Now people are trying to get sprayed before the rains come through, but I've seen some of that in the imagery. I noticed something the other day in soybeans. This was on the 2nd of June, so it was last week. These yellow fields, I went out and looked some of these fields and dug up, looked at the roots, and I found soybean cyst nematode, the earliest I've ever seen it in the 47 years that I've been an agronomist. So I think the warm temperatures that we had really accelerated the development of pests. I've seen fireflies already, which is an indication that you've had enough heat units for rootworm larvae to start feeding in corn. Haven't noticed that yet, but that would be something that people could start looking for.
Your local radio station brings you the pulse of your community. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network adds specialized ag content to help farmers make informed decisions. From county fairs to national ag news, we're here to tell the story of agriculture to everyone who needs to hear it. Together, we deliver a blend of local community and ag industry-focused information that rural Iowa relies on every day. This message from your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.
Well, yesterday, everybody was kind of keeping their eyes glued for the WASDE report, the World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimates that came out from USDA around 11 o'clock yesterday morning. And, nobody was expecting it to be a big mover. Though in June, the WASDE is not the big mover. It's usually the final planting report that we get at the end of the month that does the market moving. But Riley, some pretty quiet to negative news that came out of that.
Yeah, Dustin, it was very, very quiet, very neutral report, mostly offsetting changes that were made to the corn and soybeans. The biggest market movers were made to the Brazil and Argentina crops. They kind of adjusted and raised their expectations for their production. And then, like you mentioned, they're really just waiting for the planted acres in the quarterly grain stocks at the end of the month. So we'll be looking forward to those reports later on. We'll have more Iowa Ag Matters in a moment.
ACM and CMA award winner, Hardy.
That's my favorite country song.
Live in concert.
I woke up on the wrong side of the truck bed this morning.
August 13th, 8 p.m., Iowa State Fair Grandstand.
You got it good, old boy.
With special guest McCoy Moore. Hardy Live. Reserve tickets on sale now through iowastatefair.org. Hardy 2026.
This is the Midday Market Update on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson. Joined in midday here on Friday by Lori Carter of Comstock. Lori, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
The grains are all a little bit green this morning. We have Kansas City wheat leading. It's up 4.5 on the July. Chicago wheat's up 1 3/4 to 2.5. Corn is up 3.5 on old crop, 3 on the new crop December. So soybeans up a penny up front and down 1/4 on November.
And Lori, yesterday it seemed like corn and soybeans was pretty much in line with not much changes in the WASDE report. We went into the report thinking there could be some changes to the wheat side. Did those occur yesterday, and what did you take away from the report?
Not very big changes there, really. There might have been a little bit of something on the world number, a little bit friendly maybe on production estimates for hard red winter wheat. Not that the market reacted a whole lot yesterday, but all the grains are oversold, and we are getting a bounce back today on everything.
And that kind of lines up with what we often see, doesn't it? Because usually going into a WASDE report, you have traders getting their position squared ahead of the report, and then coming out of it, based on what happens, they react. And since we were low going into the report, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it, to have a little bit of a bounce back coming right out of the report?
It does, yes. I think people do kind of position ahead of it, maybe gambling a little bit on what they think it might say. And it wasn't anything real market moving, but yes, definitely oversold indicators allowing for a bounce.
And so now I would assume it will be pretty typical, the pattern for June, where the WASDE report is a little bit quiet. We move on from it fairly quickly. And then, of course, we circle in red pen that big report coming up at the end of the month.
Yes, that, and then also from here on out, weather is a trading issue as well.
What's happening on the livestock side of the trade?
Cattle all week this morning. We have fat cattle down 225 to 275, feeder cattle down 302 to 350. Still trading in the recent ranges they have been, but weakness across the board there. We do have hogs kind of varied. The June are down 27. They actually cash settle today and go off. The rest of the contracts up 17 to 52.
Lori, what's the best way for our listeners to get in touch for more marketing information?
You can call me at 712-227-1171.
Burwell Livestock Market, Burwell, Nebraska, Friday, June 12th will be a special cattle auction. Be starting at 11:30 on a regular auction. Be selling fall calves, feeders, bred cows, fall bred cows, heifer pairs, cow-calf pairs. That's at the Burwell Livestock Market in Burwell, Nebraska, Friday, June 12th, special cattle auction, 11:30 on a regular auction. You can view our complete listings at burwelllivestock.com. You can view and bid online at DV Auction or Cattle USA, or give us a call here at the auction market.
July corn up 3 1/4 at $4.15. July soybeans up 1 1/4 at $11.16 1/4. July soybean meal up 30 cents at $3.02. July soybean oil down 24 cents at $74.21. Chicago wheat up 2 1/4 at $5.89. Minneapolis wheat is up 3 cents at $6.22. Kansas City hard red wheat up 4 cents at $6.38 3/4. July oats down 7 3/4 at $3.07 3/4. On the Merc, June live cattle down 225 at $249.23. August feeder cattle down 365 at $356 even. July lean hogs up 53 cents at $97.15. July pork cutout down $1.03 at $1.15. That was a check of the midday markets on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson.
Well, we are going to go ahead and get things going on the livestock side of the marketplace here today on Iowa Ag Matters. Riley had a chance to go through what happened in the grains and what we're looking at shaping in today, but now we're going to take a look at cattle and hogs and how their day is getting ready to get underway.
Over in the livestock markets, live cattle futures closed with $1.17 to $1.92 gains on Thursday. There were no deliveries issued against June futures on Thursday. Open interest was up 2,405 contracts. Cash trade has been quiet this week with a few bids on Thursday reported at $253 in the south and $260 in the north. The Thursday morning Fed Cattle Exchange online auction showed no sales on the 952 head with a single bid of $255. Feeder cattle futures rallied 325 to 527 into the close. The CME feeder cattle index was back up $2.04 on June 10th to 370.10. The weekly export sales report showed 19,032 metric tons of beef sold for 26 in the week ending on June 4th. That was the third largest for the calendar year. Shipments were pegged at 15,239 metric tons, which was the second largest for the year. Wholesale box beef prices were lower in the Thursday afternoon report, with the Choice Select spread at $19.58. Choice boxes were down 8 cents to $393.21, while Select was $2.46 lower at $373.25. USDA's federally inspected cattle slaughter on Thursday was estimated at 105,000 head, with the weekly total at 421,000 head. That is down 7,000 from the previous week and 36,768 head below the same week last year. And over in the hog markets, lean hog futures saw mixed trade on Thursday, with contracts down 40 cents to 70 cents higher. Open interest was up 3,128 contracts. USDA's national base hog price was reported at $97.26 on Thursday afternoon, down 26 cents from the day prior. The CME lean hog index was up 16 cents on June 9th at $92.92. Export sales data from USDA showed pork sales for 26 at 23,504 metric tons for the week ending on June 4th, the third lowest for the year. Shipments were tallied at 34,199 metric tons, a 3-week high. USDA's pork carcass cutout value from the Thursday afternoon report was back down $1.49 at $94.47 per hundredweight. The butt, picnic, and belly were the primals reported higher. USDA estimated federally inspected hog slaughter for Thursday at 485,000 head, taking the week-to-date total to 1.884 million head. That is down 25,000 head from last week and 28,850 head below the same week last year. That's the latest market news. We'll take a look at the numbers next.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
And we're about to wrap up the show here on Iowa Ag Matters. And before we do, a conversation from our special correspondent, Russ Parker, as he was also at World Pork Expo, visiting with the Iowa Pork Producers Association President Dean Frazer. You know, a lot of the focus of the show is on the National Pork Producers Council and the National Pork Board, but Iowa Pork there to represent our Iowa pork producers across the state. And Russ has more.
Dean's from Conrad, Iowa. And Dean, if you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do, and then we'll get on to some topics that are being discussed here at World Pork Expo today.
Okay, thanks for having me, Russ. Like you said, I'm from Conrad, Iowa, Grundy County, and we farm corn, beans, seed corn, and own weaned to finished pigs there at Conrad. And I farm with my wife, Linda, and my son Grant and my daughter-in-law Josie, and now our 3-month-old grandson Mason joined the operation. So
it's all part of the family, and I understand being a grandpa, so congratulations on that. Very cool. Is that your first one?
That's our first one, and it's been great.
Okay. Change your life, guaranteed. Okay, so on to the business of pork production, and tell us a little bit about your hog operation and maybe some of the things that are impacting that, just from a marketing perspective, and then we can maybe get into some other things that are just been going through the Farm Bill here.
Yeah, we're excited, very excited that we got the Farm Bill through the House with the Prop 12 fix attached to it. And then when it went to the Senate, it got dropped for the present time. The Prop 12 part did. A group of us are actually going to D.C. next week to try to get that back into the Senate bill, or at least get it positioned for when they have their conference committee between the House and the Senate. We worked long and hard on this Prop 12, and it's time for the American pig farmer, the Iowa pig farmer, and the consumers of California to have a win here.
So let's go back and talk about Prop 12. And you, as involved in hog production, how does that impact you?
It impacts us just by the fact that a lot of packers have required some Prop 12. Not all packers, but some packers have required it. It's more space intensive. Your conception rates overall probably aren't going to be as good in a Prop 12 system. And like I always like to say, I've been farming pigs by myself for over 40 years. And I started out with a system that would have been Prop 12 compliant with outdoor lots. And I saw what happened to sows when they're housed in group housing. And it's not that pretty. It's not as pretty as the picture that you'll see in the magazine. It's a lot better to have them in the crates where they can't fight. All of them are treated humanely. No matter what system you do, we have the we care. And pork producers do care about their animals. It's part of our life and part of our profitability to treat animals right. And Prop 12 it costs a lot of money. If you convert a site to Prop 12, very costly, and it doesn't work for a lot of smaller producers like ourselves.
So, and if you get back to it, who's the original animal welfarist?
The farmer was the original animal welfarist way before we knew what animal welfare was.
Sure. So, taking care of the animals, to me, is just part of the sustainability equation. Would you agree?
Oh, it's a perfect sustainability. I always like to talk about, we raise pigs, corn, and beans. So we use the manure from the pigs to fertilize 3/4 right before our corn crop the next year. Saves a lot of commercial fertilizer, saves a lot of cost, plus it's the most sustainable system you can have.
So we have some listeners that want to kind of partner and get involved in this, and from the Prop 12 perspective, what kind of advice or direction can you give to them?
The biggest thing we continue to do is we're lucky that our whole House delegation was strongly behind it and really made a push to get it through. Both our senators, Ernst and Grassley, are strongly behind it. But just to contact one of the senators or both senators, contact their offices and just thank them for what they're doing and just give them your support.
Okay, so that would be the Iowa Pork Board and the National Pork Board? Okay, so for those that are listening, if you want to get your voices heard and help with the charge here, contact, get on the website at National Pork Producers or at Iowa Pork. And Dean, did I miss anything? Anything else that I can add?
Nope. It's good to have you here, Russ, and thank you for showing up for the World Pork Expo. A beautiful day and a great crowd out there. Well,
thanks for talking to us. I've been with Dean Frazer. This is Russ Parker reporting for the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
That's going to put the wraps on another episode of Iowa Ag Matters. Thanks to Riley, and of course, thanks to you for listening. We'll see you here coming up on Monday. Have a great weekend on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.